Did you know that Ann Wilson decided to be a musician for two reasons: sickness and obesity? Her parents made her believe that music could cure her, but they never warned her about the greater demons the industry would bring her way. From her struggles with cocaine and alcohol to being accused of engaging in lesbianism with her sister, this is the untold life story of Ann Wilson. We will also show you some of her rare photos. One of the weakest moments in Ann Wilson's life has to be the many times she and her parents relied on music to save her from the deathbed. You could say that it was a working formula, but nobody knew exactly how long it would last. Ann only accepted music at the lowest points of her life, and as a debt for saving her life, she decided to dedicate her entire life to the craft. Music was hard to miss in Ann Wilson's family. Her mother, Lou, was a concert pianist, and her father was a full-time musician who once led the U.S. Marine Corps band. Due to her father's commitments to the military, the family had to move very often, and they would often camp near military facilities. All this moving around forced the Wilsons into a lonely life, and according to Ann, the only way they kept in touch with reality was through music. Still, as a child, Ann's parents just couldn't talk her into music, no matter how hard they tried. This continued until she was very sick. On her sickbed, her father gifted her an acoustic guitar, and although she didn't play it very often, she acknowledged that the music helped in her recovery. Ann fought her way through high school, and when she graduated, she decided not to further her studies, but to focus on building a professional musical career. Ann's beautiful and powerful vocal range made it easy for her to make this transition, but she was still going to make her sister go with her. She started off performing in a lot of Seattle-based bar bands, but everything changed when she read a local ad in a newspaper in 1979. Heart needed a lead singer, and Ann thought herself to be a great fit. She auditioned and was offered the job on the spot. Heart at that time had Steve Fossen, who played the bass, Roger Fisher, the guitarist, and Ann Wilson joined them as their lead singer. Things were great at this point, as Heart became one of the most recognizable bands in Canada, but they got even better when Ann invited her younger sister, Nancy, in 1974. She completed the group with her powerful acoustic guitar skills, which were beautifully complemented by the electric hard rock music. This went on to become Heart's most famous trademark. Heart released their debut album, Dreamboat Annie, in 1976, and the numbers were outstanding. Magic Man, a track from the album, became Heart's first top 10 hit in the United States, and Crazy on You would hit number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100. Both songs were co-written by the Wilson sisters. This was the beginning of their fame, but eventually Ann was going to become the brighter star. The next year was even better for the band as their 1977 album, Little Queen, dominated the market. A track you might remember from this album is the now classic Barracuda. Heart went on to release other albums, such as the 1978 Dog and Butterfly and Private Audition, which was released in 1983. Most people thought the sisters were the wheels that kept the band going, but they were not so wrong. As the years progressed, Heart's full lineup went through a lot of changes, but Ann and Nancy remained the band's driving force as lead singer and lead guitarist. 1985 was the most celebrated year in the band's history as their 8th studio album, Heart, broke all records. Heart became the band's only album to reach #1 on the US charts, selling over 5 million copies. Things had never been better than they were at that point, but the Wilson sisters crashed the party when they left the band to form their new group Lovemongers in 1993. But sadly, this was not as successful as it was on paper, and all attempts to revive Heart's old glory failed. Ann's career slowly came to a fold with age and health fighting against her, but the singer still doesn't admit to any regrets. According to her, she is just focused on doing everything to make the remaining moment count. Ann Wilson made it to the list of the greatest heavy metal vocalists of all time, and in 2013, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was hard to tell from the stands, but Ann, in an interview, went into the details about her secret struggles with drug and substance abuse when she was at Heart. While this is not very uncommon among rock stars, Ann revealed the dangers of this addiction and how she was lucky to have escaped from it. According to her, her addiction journey started with marijuana, which she depended on to boost her performance on stage, and this affected her mental health. It got even worse during the peak of their success in the 80s. Then, almost everyone in the band was addicted to cocaine. Everything we did in those years had a white sheen of powder over it. There were only a few people in our band who resisted, Ann reported. Wilson concluded by saying that she only did drugs because of peer pressure, and she was lucky to have escaped before it was too late. Love was never Ann's strongest shine, and this can be seen in the quality of men that she lets into her heart. Her first public romance was with the manager of Heart, Michael Fisher, and while that went on, her sister Nancy got involved with lead guitarist Roger Fisher, Michael's younger brother. Blending business and pleasure is almost never a good idea, and although Anne prayed for this to last, it was still going to end the same old way. After about 9 years of romance, Anne broke up with Fisher. According to her, he was keeping an outside affair, but that was not what broke her. She was devastated when she found out that Michael, for some reason, had fallen out of love with her. Somehow they managed to keep the band going under all of this heat and drama, but thinking about it now, I think this might have just been the real reason the Wilsons left the band years later. The hurt from the split was so deep that for 36 years, Anne Wilson refused to open her heart up to love again. This continued until she met Dean Wetter. According to Anne, the striking thing about Dean was how much of a gentleman he was. She revealed that they had dated briefly in the 80s, and one night, when Wetter was drunk, she tried to seduce him, but he was still sober enough to decline. This was enough to convince her that Dean was the kind of man she wanted to build forever with. They reunited again in 2014, and after a few months of courtship, the couple tied the knot in a private wedding in Topanga, California. This made Wetter the stepfather of Anne's adopted children, Marie and Dustin. For the couple, it has been bliss after bliss until Wetter tries to break the bond between the Wilson sisters. A year after Anne got married, her husband was arrested for assaulting her sister's 16-year-old twin boys. While Dean owned up to his faults, confessing that he was overtaken by anger and frustration, it was just too late for sorries. It all started during a Heart performance in the White River Amphitheater. Wetter was seated with his nephews at the backstage VIP area when they asked him if they could see the inside of the new tour bus. According to Dean, he permitted the boys, but he asked them to be careful not to let the dogs out. But the boys left the door of the bus wide open, and when Wetter noticed, he flew into a rage. He started with words, but this had very little effect, so he slapped and punched the first boy in the back of his head. When his twin intervened, he would wrap his hand around his neck, almost strangling him. When the Wilsons returned after the show, they just couldn't believe what happened. It was hard, but Anne eventually forgave her husband. The other Wilson was going to keep a grudge. Nancy's relationship with her sister is never going to be the same after this, and she blames Dean for it. Wetter paid a $10,000 bail during their court appearance, and he was ordered not to contact the teens until further notice. In recent times, Anne and Nancy seem to have buried the hatchet as they started performing together again, but it's very unlikely that Nancy fixed her relationship with Wetter. By the way, another thing you may not know is that two things motivated Anne Wilson to take up music as a long-term career: sickness and obesity. Wilson revealed that she struggled with obesity and a stutter all through her childhood and teenage years. It was so bad that, at some point, the singer contemplated killing herself. Anne was bullied to believe that she was ugly, fat, and had everything wrong with her. To make up for all of these insufficiencies, she ran to the one thing that she was really good at: music. Music helped her overcome her stutter, and her resonant, beautiful, and powerful voice was appealing to any audience. So, she easily decided that this was what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. Anne thinks body shaming is a weak idea. According to her, everyone should be allowed to be sexy and powerful no matter what shape they are in. Anne Wilson has not announced her retirement yet, so she continues to make appearances whenever her health and schedule let her. She believes age to be just a number, and for her firm stamina in old age, Anne credits her management of her appetite for alcohol. I think anyone can agree that we were really lucky to have experienced the magic of the Wilson sisters. Anne Wilson, now 73 years old, lives a happy and fulfilled life as a wife and mother. She is currently living in Florida with her family. The celebrity singer and actress has an estimated net worth of $18 million. If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll also enjoy the one showing on your screen right now. Click, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one.